Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Other Record Labels, the art and culture of running a record label. I'm your host, Scott Orr. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. It's been a little bit of a while since our last episode, if you've been following along in real time. And there's been a reason for that. Of course, it's been the summer, so taking a break has been nice. But during these past few months, I've been working on two things. Number one has been pre-recording a bunch of episodes, so we won't ever have to take a break like that again. And there's some really cool episodes that I'm excited for you to hear. And the second thing is that I've been taking some time to go back over the previous episodes and remembering some of that wisdom that these label owners and managers have shared, and typing this up and creating a little booklet that I'm calling a free guide for indie record labels, which was just a way to kind of remember what was said and to share some of this for any of the folks who are listening who run their own record label or maybe are a DIY artist and are interested in starting their own label. There's some really helpful tips in here. So here's how you get it. You go to otherrecordlabels.com. That's otherrecordlabels.com. And there's a link right there to download this free guide that I think you'll find really helpful. And there's tips from Bayonet Records, Asthmatic Kitty Records, Sub Pop, Tiny Engines, Forged Artifacts, so many great labels covering so many different topics and genres. And I think you'll find this really helpful. So please check it out. Go to otherrecordlabels.com. The other thing I'd like you to do is please leave a review and on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, and that really helps us as well. It's a really cool thing to hear some of the comments coming back about the show, and to read some of the reviews, which I did over the summer as well. So thanks so much for that. I'm really excited today because, and I know I've maybe said this a few times, but today's label, we talk with Farbod and Bobby of Geographic North Records. It's just Geographic North. I have loved this label for so long, and I really gush all over these guys for a good hour, so I apologize for that. But I just am so thrilled that we were able to finally connect and do this episode. These are the coolest guys. It's probably one of the first times I've done a two-person interview with two guests, and we just had so much fun chatting about their strategy and their aesthetic. While we're talking, I really want you to go to geographicnorth.com, and I think it's geographic with a dash, so geographic-north.com, and you can also check them out on Bandcamp, which is just geographicnorth, no dash, .bandcamp.com. So geographic-north.com or geographic.bandcamp.com, because we're talking a lot about the visual side of running a record label. And these guys have a phenomenal aesthetic and have some incredible graphic design attached with their releases on top of great music. So check out those links as we're talking, and I really hope you enjoy this interview. When I interviewed Asthmatic Kitty, we said the word Sufjan Stevens like maybe a million times. Yeah. And like as the episode got halfway through, I'm like, I've been saying it Sufjan for maybe 20 years. And like, have I got it right? I think I've got it right. And then you start to doubt yourself.
Yeah, you lucked out, man. I've been doing the Sufjan.
Oh yeah,
I did that for a while.
Okay,
I think I did Sufjan. Yeah, that would be terrible in an interview.
Sufjan. So. Yeah.
Sufjan.
I don't know. It's a huge challenge. I actually Googled your name, and there was like a YouTube video that pronounced gave the pronunciation ahead of time, but it turns out it's completely wrong.
So that was where you got the Farbud?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, the Persian accent, you kind of roll these different letters. And so, yeah, it's Farbud.
Did I lose you? Oh, go ahead.
You got us. It's Farbud when my parents say it, but, for the general population, it's Farbod. So,
Farbod.
That's cool.
Okay, it's great.
Thank you.
No, whatever. So listen, this is so exciting. We're gonna roll right into it because I have so much to do. And listen, fellas, if you guys are uncomfortable with being praised and admired, then this is gonna be a rough episode for you, and you might want to just disconnect because. Honestly, and we're going to kick off the new season, quote unquote, with this episode, if that's cool. But I just I admire you guys so much. I've loved this label for so long, and it killed me that it took a year for you guys to respond to my email.
Oh,
wow.
man.
Okay.
I'm just
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm half joking.
I'll just also say, like, we have definitely been catching up on your episodes, and it's definitely an honor to be asked. You haven't done every label in the world, so I think to be asked, so soon, and to hear the level of detail and care that you're putting into this, it means a lot. So
yeah, man, I'm sorry we did not respond on that email. I think we were. I think 100% of the time, if there's an email that's lingering, it sits in our conscience for so long.
Yes.
And it just eats away at us. And then eventually a year later, we'll email you back.
It's always a thing. I always think, I'm telling myself now to follow up, because the follow-ups always work. And but you get so defeated and you take it really personally when they don't respond to the first one. You're like, I'm not going to bother these guys.
Yep.
But
and that said, we're probably going to use this as an opportunity to kind of reiterate offers that we've made to a ton of artists that we really admire, and they haven't emailed us back. So perhaps if they hear this throughout the episode, we'll name names.
They're certainly listening. I know that Sufjan is listening right now. So this is so great, and I absolutely love the label, and it was so great today to go through it again and to kind of, because I've been following along, and we're going to really dive deep into the aesthetic, into the design portion of the label, and but I've been following along, and it always feels like there's a new season with the label, and that there's a new design look, and you guys just always up the ante, and I'm so glad to have you a part of it. This is going to be fun.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much.
I'm curious about the macro objective of Geographic North. To me, anyway, it's different than most labels. It feels more like a cross between a record label and an art gallery. Can you kind of tell me about this? What is the overarching objective of the label?
Oof.
That's a big question. I mean, I think, having not prepared an answer, I think, it's very much a space for Farbod and I to create and collaborate together. I think, Farbod's just such a strong designer. He works incredibly hard at it, and he really puts a lot into trying to make something new, like maybe something he hasn't seen, not putting words in your mouth or anything. But our friendship goes back quite a long ways at this point. And I mean, it's just, as music fans and with his creative abilities, it's just kind of a way to mash those together. And
I think that's a good summary. I think, the sort of need to kind of give back to counterculture, which kind of gave us so much at, very vulnerable points in our lives. To be able to participate in it in any capacity, I think is really just, how we appreciate the label and how we kind of look at it. I mean, to be able to work with some of the artists we've worked with, to sort of contribute to their discography, to, whatever, from writing a bio for them to designing a sleeve or whatever it is. It's just, we have a giddiness about it that we haven't gotten jaded about yet.
Oh, that's great.
I think that's really what kind of drives us, is that we're still just overly stoked when we finally break through and accomplish, something, when we finish a record or series of tapes or whatever it may be. I think we just still have a great deal of positive energy radiating when those things happen. And that's really what drives it. And that's really kind of our goal.
You're pretty careful with what you release. It seems very intentional. It's more of a quality over quantity. I mean, what do you guys, are you like 2 or 3 albums a year? Do you think about that at all?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we're at capacity if we get out 2 records and like 2 tapes or 3 tapes. And we have around 3 more releases for the rest of the year this year.
Oh, wow.
And it's a series of tapes. Yeah, I know.
That's
it's
great.
probably the most we've actually done. But there's just 2 of us, and our resources are what they are, and, the amount of hours in the day are what they are.
Yeah, no,
and
for
we
sure.
Yeah, and as it's kind of like balancing life and still doing this thing. And what's odd is, trying to, and I want to bring up my parents here, I still regularly hang out with them and talk to them about what I do, and they still kind of struggle to understand, the value in putting in whatever 8 more hours in the day after spending 8 hours at your day job or whatever it is. And, I think that sort of level of commitment is just something that comes from a loving place. It doesn't come from a place of like, oh, we have to do this, we have to get out whatever 7-8 albums. We just kind of like doing it. And that's kind of been what's allowed us to put out whatever a curated amount of records in a year.
Yeah, and I feel like especially in the past couple years, I'd say we've tried to limit ourselves. Like we're kind of burning ourselves a little bit by kind of getting very excited about potential ideas and potential projects and reaching out to people, or just, we would receive certain demos that would just be very exciting. And then all of a sudden our backlog is, a little bit long, and we're starting to kind of take some time on things. So I think right now we're at our healthiest in terms of like, we have an open space to kind of play with and come up with ideas. But yeah, it's just,
and I mean,
trying to keep that under control.
I saw that you guys have a demo policy, like you are open to unsolicited demos. So you must have to turn down quite a lot, because if you're only doing 2 or 3 records a year, and you said you're pursuing artists at the same time, you're having to maybe turn down a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's easier and easier to send your music to labels, you know what I mean? And I know what that side is kind of like. So I don't think we're actively turning down a lot of folks. I think just the air in general, like we try to respond to as many people as we can. But I'd say, I mean, a handful of our releases, and we haven't put out, 100 releases or anything yet, but at least a handful have been from received demos.
Oh, that is
so we
really
do listen
cool.
to a lot of the stuff that comes in, basically everything. But yeah, I mean, we've gotten some very exciting, folks that we were not familiar with at all, kind of come up. One of the tapes that we're putting out later this year is by this this will be their second release, but this trio called Sandy. And they reached out to us out of the blue. They had one tape on Night People a few years ago. And, I think it took a little bit of guts in their part. I think they were always kind of shocked, I think, that we listened and responded. It just isn't necessarily what we're known for. It's kind of more on kind of like the electro pop kind of side of things. It's very shoegazy. It's very beautiful. There's a lot of different sounds going on. But yeah, it just hit us perfectly, and it is just such a strong set of songs. And that's just an example of something, at least recently, that just came in totally out of the blue.
I think that's really encouraging for other artists to, for any DIY artists or independent artists to hear that. And I've heard that repeatedly, where labels have signed and released music from online submissions from strangers.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I mean, it's kind of like, it kind of goes back to the roots of it, of just people teaming up, with no background, no history, and just, seeing what works, seeing what feels right.
Mm-hmm. How did the label get started? I'm really curious about like the origins of this and when it got started.
Ooh. Let's see. No, it's
has it always been there?
It's always been around. No, it's such a. I think the story has now morphed a few times since I think I originally told. But we both went to Georgia State University, so I think the label itself started with another Georgia State friend of ours. We all worked at the radio station Album 88. But Farzad Moghadam, he was working at the radio station, and I started working there as well. And we kind of connected on, interest in music and interest in film and so on and so forth. And, I was studying to be a graphic designer, and he was the music director at Album 88, the Georgia State radio station. And we kind of, decided, hey, this probably seems like a good sort of in to starting a record label, and that he has a lot of connections and contacts to, whatever artists and groups that we were into at the time. And then, I had somewhat of a, ability to design maybe some sleeves for these. And so we were just trying things out at first. And then I think about a year into it, we already knew Bobby, and Bobby was just the coolest dude. He would just listen to all the right jams. He would always be down for a hang. He would always be like interested in whatever new thing we found, and then vice versa. And it was just this like inherent love for one another. And we were like, why don't you kind of help out on this jam too? The three of us now. And yeah, that's kind of how it started. Is there a different version of that, or is that the summary?
No, I mean that's really it. I think even before they asked me to, I mean, at that point it's weird to be like officially join on, because it was so, it was very like handmade still.
Yeah.
And it was very just like,
I wrote it down on a piece of paper.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's been documented the day you joined.
But I mean, even before that, I was kind of overly eager, overly pushy to be like, hey guys, can I come over and like put some latex gloves on and like fold a bunch of like 7-inch covers?
Yeah, no, those are like the defining moments of the label. We were putting out 7 inches early on.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was an antiquated format at the time too, as more so than it is now. But
Right.
What we were doing is like getting everything made in different places. So we would have the vinyl manufactured and sent to us, and then I was being being inexperienced and not fully appreciating efficiency or anything like that. I really wanted these like elaborate metallic prints and all this other stuff on very specific paper.
Sure.
And, I didn't know that the manufacturer could probably pull that off too. So I was, hiring a printer in town and, going over to the print shop and really being specific about everything, a real designer guy and stuff
good.
like that. Yeah, but we would have to put these 7 inches together using latex gloves, because we would get the sleeves in, but they wouldn't fully be dried and they didn't have any sort of varnish or anything. So if you touch them, you'd leave fingerprints. And it was kind of cool. This is our imprint, and this is our thing, and we're DIY and all that. But we were also trying to be as pro as we can about it. And so we were wearing these latex gloves inside Farzad's living room in Cabbagetown, and putting together these 7 inches. And I think that's kind of like when you take a step back and it's like, hey, this is a record label.
Yeah.
I got myself a record label.
Yeah.
And I think that's that moment I envision when I think of Bobby joining the label.
Oh, totally.
It's all of us sitting inside a living
When
room.
was that? How far back?
So that was like
8 or 9.
09. Yeah.
Yeah, 2009.
Wow. It's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That's great.
It's cool. Yeah. I definitely feel lucky that like neither of us has really gotten tired, like lost that passion, because like we still hand assemble all the covers. Like everything that goes out of the door has been handled by us and assembled, which is a pretty great feeling. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the design and the aesthetic. I mean, this is my favorite part, and it's my favorite thing about you guys. It's my favorite aesthetic of any label. And
man.
no, I'm not. Listen, this is not the time to BS. And I said this for a long. I said this for a long time, and I've always I mentioned you guys when we did the Ghostly interview.
Yeah.
And it's always been this way. I finally, I mean, shipping to Canada has always been a bit of an issue, but I finally picked up the Felecia Atkinson tape, which musically, and this surprised me, but musically is one of my favorite records from last year. It was
amazing.
such a beautiful listen, Coyotes. And it just really, it really hit me. And I hadn't always felt that way with experimental music. And even with more of her catalog, specifically that record was so great. But
great.
I just honestly, but from before that, you guys had come up at some point through Bandcamp or whatnot. I was going through your site. I was trying to figure out the first time that I saw like what record it was, and it might have been this like Clip Beaks maybe, because I remember seeing that, but I can't remember. But anyway, always just really loved it. What does design mean to you guys? I mean, I think it's obviously really important, but why is it important for you and for the record label?
Well, first of all, thanks for grabbing that Felecia record.
Yes, I had to do it so quickly. I had to do it so quickly. It was sold out so fast.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you got it. What is design scene to the? Well, I mean, it's part of the reason we, good bit of it. Why we do this in the first place. It's part of a bigger conversation. Like how can we actually collaborate with an artist, with a musician, and I fully respect the idea that an artist who delivers the music may have a vision of what the visual design for their album should be, and that should be 100% listened to and appreciated and absorbed and all that good stuff. But I think from our perspective, and the reason we kind of have this label is to do the pure collaboration with the artist, and that you deliver the goods on the music, and we'll kind of help for more better or less like create a narrative, because a lot of the time that visual art to a release is the first time you're kind of interacting with an album, even before you hear the tunes. Yeah, even before you hear those tunes, you're seeing something, and it could be a perfect mirror to reflect whatever the music is, or it could be totally flipping the idea of what you're about to hear, whatever it may be, and I think that's where we really get the thrill. When we get the record like Felicia's delivered to us, and it's so nuanced and brilliant in so many ways that it's hard to encompass that in sort of just one visual, and there's no absolute there, of course. So in that case, that was part of a series of tapes, but we already knew which tapes we were putting out. We knew the artist, we knew the music for it, and so you take that into account, and we tried to create something that perhaps Felecia hasn't had on display before, even though, man, those Shelter Press records are just gorgeous.
Yes.
She's already like
no kidding.
Releases that are beautiful.
There's another label that won't return my calls.
Oh, they'll do it now. let us throw an email. We got you, dude.
I'm half joking. But please do.
No, absolutely.
But yeah, they're beautiful stuff.
Like she already had all these beautiful records. So what can I contribute? What can we contribute to this discography? And so I think we're just always trying to figure out ways to kind of add on to the legacy of these artists and to kind of help create that story for them and their records.
But
so design's a big deal to that.
Let me interrupt you, because I feel like you're being too kind about this whole process, or making it sound easier than it is. My biggest issue with design is guiding the artist. Basically, okay. I always think I feel like I'm trying to push the artist towards an aesthetic or towards a design that I think best suits the music, which, like, of course, I think is best. But how do you respect them as an artist and respect their tastes? But at the same time, you might have a better understanding on design. Who's the creative director in these relationships?
Yeah, no, that's a tough one. And again, I think that's where we kind of stand firm in our vision of what we do. The reason we do this is, yes, to facilitate putting out records for people, but we also do it to, again, have a creative outlet for our ideas.
Yes.
And so whether it be these pieces of poetry that, Bobby is kind of lacing together on these recent 2 releases, and then the overall aesthetic of it, we have a firm vision of what we want to do, and the artists we work with, I think, have a strong understanding that we drive that, that we are that voice. And a lot of times, most everyone rolls with it. Whether, I can't tell if they really love something or if they're just like, all right, see what we do here. But most of the time, I think the reception is enthusiasm and stoked to have this version of them in the world.
And I'll kind of say too, it hasn't always been easy, like we've definitely, like Farbod's saying, kind of stand firm in some of these things.
It's never been easy. I don't know when it got easy.
So, well, not really easier, but I'll say the longer we've been around and the more people are familiar with what we do and kind of our image and aesthetic and everything. That's kind of an easier conversation to have, or one that doesn't even happen. People kind of come to us and they're like, I don't know, like they want like the Geographic North treatment, if I was to maybe say it kind of simply.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But that's not to say we've gotten pretty far down the line on a couple projects, and, for one reason or another, just couldn't come to an agreement. Everyone walks away amicably, but that's all to say. It's not always easy, but we kind of have to do what kind of feels right in those situations.
And the other part, I appreciate you suggesting that I may be communicating this with a little bit more, whatever whimsy than there actually is behind it. No, it's always belabored. It's always extremely difficult. We put so much work into this, but it's also kind of, I don't know, not cool in my opinion to complain about putting an effort into creating something. You're making something, and what we're making is what we want to do, and that's not many people have this opportunity.
Right.
So even if it is hard, who cares? It's a few emails, it's a few awkward combos with an artist, and they get it, man.
I love that, and I think what Bobby was saying is I think there you hit a certain point where if you come to the website and you submit your album for you guys to consider, what what you're going to get with Geographic North, and most likely you're going there to get that. But I remember when we interviewed Mute Records in the UK. I want to ask your opinion on this. And Mute is obviously godly. They're Depeche Mode and Moby, and they when we were talking with them, they completely leave artwork up to the artists on the basis that they I don't know if you heard that, but they sign these artists for their aesthetic abilities. So they should guide the visual side of the album. I disagree with it, because I think, and no disrespect to Mute, obviously, but I just think that a great songwriter doesn't make a great designer. In the same way, I don't think a great singer makes a great mix engineer or video editor. What are your thoughts on this?
I don't know. I mean, I don't. That's a tough one. I guess it's more like just for me recognizing that what we have and what we work on is our thing. That's just kind of the decision that we made. That's not to say that it's right or wrong or anyone else.
Sure. It
doesn't make sense for them to do with it. Like, there's a million labels I can think of that I love, and I mean, you could stand 10 of their releases, out on a table or something, and not even guess that it's all from the same label.
Yeah.
And there's nothing really wrong with that. That's just kind of the way they approach it. I don't know. I don't know.
Whatever you want to do is cool. Daniel Miller is a guy, so we're not going to tell him what to do at all. Put out enough good records.
That's right.
Some goons in Atlanta have no opinion.
No, and I'm on the fence, because as a music fan, I'm not sure that it really matters. But looking at your label, it's something that I've always, and there are a few other labels who have been able to achieve that consistent aesthetic, and I really love it. And I do. And
who are they? Name names.
Let's put it.
Tell me who's messing with us. I'd like to know, really. Tell me who's doing it better than us.
Going back to, there's nobody, guys. Come on. There's a few second places. Going back to the Felecia record, and specifically there was 3 tapes, and you've already alluded to potentially another 3 coming out this fall. Thanks for using the show to premiere that information. I'm looking back through your catalog, and it seems like you have done these series in the past where there's a few tapes that have this consistency. I don't know if you're just changing your mind as a designer, or if this is intentionally, we're going to do this batch. What is the vision behind that, doing like a trilogy or a series?
Right. So initially it was out of necessity that, we started kind of doing it systematically. And, we had a bunch of releases that we really wanted to get out one way or another. And, we couldn't afford to put them all out on vinyl. And this is, roughly around 2010, 2011. and the whole like cassette boom wasn't really popping yet. So we were kind of, excited to explore this thing that was still, even for being underground, kind of fringy. But we were just like, well, how are we going to knock out all these covers? We don't have the time or the resources, right? So, and by trade, I'm a graphic designer, and a lot of what I've, appreciated in my career is building systems, logo systems or brand systems or whatever it may be. And kind of boring to talk about, but the whole point is that you're able to carry, one concept or one kind of aesthetic or one kind of approach through a series of things. And through that series, it kind of creates its own energy, right?
Totally.
And this is absolutely nothing new, of course. And I think one of our biggest influences when we started doing the cassettes, which, it's been an influence since day one of even listening to music. But, Factory had a series of cassettes that were color coded in these sort of cloth boxes, like these canvas boxes that all had these different colors. But, they'd be putting out cassettes of records that they had already put out that already had their own, cover art and design and all that. But they kind of turn it into this system, this cassette system, this color-coded system, and all they had was, the number of the release.
Yeah.
It was a factory release, so it had that really iconic FAC, and then they had the artist's name and the name of the album, and it was in this really elegant. I think it was like for graphic designer dorks, I think it was Caslon or something like that. But it really had this real beautiful elegance to it. It was very stoic and it was very considered, but it was also very efficient. And that efficiency in itself, I think, is really beautiful. And so when we first started doing the cassettes, we wanted to find an efficient way of doing it, and we wanted to still kind of maintain our aesthetic. And so after, I think, 4 or 5 of sort of that first set of releases we did on cassette, I thought it was kind of boring to go beyond that in terms of, that number. Yeah, we wanted to change it up. And so I think we've gotten kind of that mentality where, hey, we'll do about 3 or 4 cassettes with this kind of look, and then find a way to kind of ante up and get bigger.
Yeah.
And, there's some folks that never have bought our cassettes. They might have only listened to those joints digitally, and they won't fully comprehend the level of beauty, immense beauty that goes into kind of constructing these things. But no, there's multiple layers, and there's a lot of craft that goes into these things, and I think that's where the simplicity can be a little bit lost when you look at it on a website or on a streaming service. But when you get this cassette and it's got like 4 or 5 die cuts in that thing, and it's all these different kinds of pieces of paper and all this other shit, that's kind of the heads that we're going for, those that can appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I imagine there's people who are probably frantically ordering all 3 tapes in a series just because the completists in them would probably go nuts if they missed out on one.
Oh, I'm glad. We're very grateful for those people.
That's part of it too. Just as music fans ourselves, we can fully appreciate like kind of seeing the different sets lined up and collecting them, and just being able to get that whole series.
I love it. I'm sitting here on your site as we're talking, and I hope our listeners are doing the same thing. Otherwise, they won't know what we're talking about. But I think I just love it so much. And I think we've talked about this on another episode with someone else. But when you do physical, even if you just do physical, whether or not you do a elegant package or not, when you do physical, it is quite a homage to the music itself. And to me, it's paying respect to the music and saying you deserve a place in the real world.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I don't know who said that. Yeah. But anyway, I love the we were talking about where did this idea come from? But these individual die cuts, these individual pieces, like to the users at home, to listeners at home. I'm holding the Felecia Atkinson cassette, which is sold out, suckers, and it has 3 pieces that you built. You put them all together, and then it's so abstract. It's so beautiful. And I had no idea that it came like that until I ordered it and got it in the mail and pulled it out. So talk to me through that process. I mean, that's so incredible.
Oh man, thank you. No, that's great. I think again, that's another thing that's a product of necessity and kind of limitations of resources and funds and whatever else we have, and that we're printing these ourselves,
Okay.
and then having them cut by a printer, and printing them ourselves on a laser printer. We're going to get the best quality, purest black, but you're not going to get good quality colors at all, and we're not going to print out some janky colors on some white paper or whatever. So kind of piggybacking the aesthetic that we have, we really appreciate being able to create negative space and using typography to create that negative space and create this energy and feeling and rhythm and all that. And so then if it just takes really vivid colors and that contrast and kind of using that as the hardworking part of the design, we decided, hey, let's just start using different colored paper instead of having to get these printed.
Gosh.
So,
I didn't realize that was the
that's the secret sauce.
That's so cool. What a great idea.
Well, I mean, again, it's just one of those things like, all right, we can't print, metallic blue or whatever, but hey, we can go buy metallic blue paper.
And it's so interesting how lack of the necessity and the lack of options kind of drives the creative side.
Yeah, I think that's the most fun doing these.
Beautiful.
Is that we're able to kind of revisit what we've done in the past and say, hey, how can we make this even better? And not to like toot our own horn, but I think we have a series of releases coming that I think kind of up the ante, and I'm not really sure where we go after this, but
I mean, we say that every time.
Yeah, I think, but we went there.
We think time. That.
So, in these coming months, if you are listening to this, keep refreshing that website because we're going to spill it on them. So
I love a lot of what you've done, but I'm going to stop complimenting you at some point because I don't want you to get uncomfortable. But
thank you. That's so sweet.
The Catch a Blessing record is unbelievable, and it has to do. There's something about it. It has to do with the white, but you can see the blue spine a little bit, and the blue back kind of pops up, and I loved the black splatter vinyl as well, the original one, and that is such a great thing.
That paintbrush stroke.
Mm-hmm.
If you caught that, like the actual paintbrush strokes.
Yeah, it's a cool one, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad you recognize that one. And I think, like anyone else who does anything, they always think their like newest is their greatest,
right?
Or, best. And like musically, Matthew is just bonkers on this record. Completely playing with so many different textures and moods and kind of feeling that. I feel like not many artists are able to have that dynamic quality to their sound that he has. And so recognizing that and then kind of pulling in some of those attributes into the visual design. And that's, having that typography that's kind of, it's gridded and but it's not sterile. It's got sort of an intuitive touch to it.
It's a heady playfulness, just like the music.
Right.
It fits right in.
And as you were saying, that brush stroke and all that's like another sort of texture and element. But it's not high-minded in the execution, but I think when it comes together, it really does have something a bit more complex.
We talked a little bit about the artists, some artists pushing back a little bit, but you got to have some artists who are just over the moon with what you create for them.
Yeah. You want to talk about the ones that don't like it though? Because
those are the only ones that stick in your mind.
No, they're all sweet too. Who likes this?
Oh, I mean, Matt was going crazy.
Oh yeah, Matt's cool.
One for sure.
Matt's really into everything we do. Moses is into everything we do too. Moon diagrams.
And so was it was Bobby, as you say, that you were writing the pieces like on the previous moon diagrams and on the latest one, like writing the pieces on the front and the back?
Yep. Yeah.
That is a really cool. I mean, especially it's heavier on the Lifetime of Love, like. I don't know how long ago that was.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I did not write that one. No, not the Lifetime of Love.
Okay. Scott, do you want to know something cool?
Yes.
Do you want to know a huge little tidbit here?
Please.
Because I can give it to you.
Let's break it.
And it might dumb it down to some extent, but I think so Moses had initially sent us some like mood board stuff. And he had sent a paper clipping of a newspaper from like Toronto or something like that. And it had a gentleman sitting in a chair with a cat on his lap. And at the very top of it, it said, whatever's on the Lifetime of Love cover. It's not the name of the album, but I think it says something along the lines of like, life is just the repeated, I don't know.
Life has no shape at all.
Yeah, life has no shape at all. Yeah. So, we really thought that was, poignant and kind of like, it's cryptic and abstract. So let's pull that into it. But we also really liked, the layout of the newspaper, like the actual columns and all that. So, let's play with that kind of look and all that. And then, so when like the end of the design process came around, we had this really cool thing, but we didn't have any like actual text to put into that text field. And Moses, being kind of like the somewhat nihilist that he is, he was just, let's just put lorem ipsum in there. It doesn't really matter. And I just thought it was like the most profound thing when he said it. And so if you look at that record and you look at the cover of it, it is lorem ipsum.
No, but I can't see it. Where would I see that? Like on your website? It's like the translated
version of I guess you can't find it. It's good that you can't find it because it's not really saying much.
Maybe
but
Bandcamp.
It's like it's translated lorem ipsum. So it's like actual sentences and phrases and all that, but it's a kind of this lorem ipsum format. Man. So it's kind of, in a way, it's nonsensical, but in a way that it inherently is what that record is. In a way, it's sort of a whatever, who cares? I'm just going to do it kind of approach. And I think that reflects it really well in that regard. So.
Well, and I mean,
I don't know if that story was as interesting as I made it out to be.
No, sure.
It's a big deal to me.
I think we're deep diving too much into design and we've lost a few people. That's okay. But I think that there's times where like text it's not about what it says. It's just how it's aligned and how it looks. And specifically,
the texture of it,
specifically on that record, from a distance, there's just something about it, and I don't need to read it. It's really cool.
Right. That's the romance of it. Yeah, you get it, man.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't get it, they need to talk to you about it because you know what you're talking about.
How does the A&R process work? So you said you contact people that you admire. Is that kind of at the place you're at? Because everything is so limited that you just don't have, with your resources.
Yeah. I think that's at the heart of it. I think we just really like to reach out to people who generally inspire us, who we're generally fans of. That's kind of like the seed of it. Beyond that, it's like, okay, maybe who would we like to hear another release from? Maybe someone that's been around for a while, haven't heard from in a few years. It might also be a younger artist or a newer artist, maybe has one release, maybe, no releases either. It just kind of depends. But I think really like at the heart of it is we are just huge music nerds and music fans. And a lot of what we do, reaching out to people, if they are bigger names, I think we do try to reach out a little bit bigger than we are at times.
That's great.
And that's really, inspired us, infinitely just to keep going and to just work with a lot of these people. And really just that reaching out for whoever we can, like that's really enabled a lot of different projects. So like thinking about the Halloween compilation that we did last time, the second one, that one just snowballed so quickly. Just as music fans, that was one of the most fun times we've ever had, just trying to think of, brainstorming, daydreaming, who could we possibly work with to make this whole experience of this compilation, and for that one specifically, the benefit and the charity of it all. How do we make this as big and special as we can? And it really just pushed ourselves to reach out to people, kind of ignoring that feeling of like, well, they're probably too busy to respond, or they're too big to respond, or they're not going to have enough time. Like, there's so many people that even just responded to us who weren't involved, where I'm still kind of like, kind of speechless by just that they responded to our message saying,
amazing.
Hey, this is a cool idea. Keep it up, but unfortunately I can't be involved right now, but keep it up. Thanks for reaching out. That means, the world to us as well. So
that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the music side of things. We've spent so long talking about the aesthetic, but that is critical to the label from my standpoint. But I want to talk a little bit about the music, because it isn't straight ahead music, and I want to kind of know where the origins came from that, or what attracted you to that genre, because it's experimental, it's ambient, it's drone at sometimes, it's field recordings, and it's, to me, it's a very interesting area of music. And I've talked a little bit, we talked to Taylor about this, 12K, about how I feel like streaming is opening more people up to it, because you don't have to pay more to experience some of this music. But I'm interested because abstract art has been always something that's people have been interested in and accepted in the world, but it's not as easily said about abstract music or mixed media recordings. Do you think the general population will eventually warm up to this style of music? Is it a niche that's growing?
I don't know. I mean, I think it'll always remain fairly niche. I think just what the bigger crowds, I guess, what they're trying to get out of music, and then sound, even though that's not even taken into their thinking with music. Music in general, this just isn't going to be a very popular form of music. Like, it doesn't really cater to big crowds necessarily. Like, if there are more people at an ambient show or something,
right,
that might start to hurt the overall ambiance if there's like chatter or something going on. But it's also, I think, definitely not an exclusive kind of genre and style of music. I think now more than ever, that area of music is very inclusive. I think more and more people are making it, more and more people are connecting and collaborating and everything. Yeah.
No, I think that's, I think as long as you've kind of emotionally respond to something, you're probably, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I'm just, if you hear it and you like it, a good chance you're going to check out something similar to it, right? So I think that most people just haven't heard some of this stuff, and it hasn't become part of their, their atmosphere. And when it becomes part of that DNA of yours, you just always are interested in exploring the depths of what's out there, man. It's kind of weird, right? Because a wide audience can like appreciate a Rothko, but like they can't listen to like Stockhausen or something like that. And it's odd because is it? But it is obviously different forms of mediums or whatever. But at the core of it, emotionally, I feel like you're drawing on the same sort of ideas and concepts and such. So maybe they just don't know it exists. Who knows?
That's true. Yeah, and that's what I kind of like about the internet and the global music scene and with possibly even streaming, is that there's this, and earbuds as well. People can explore some things without feeling judged or having to share that with other people. Yeah. What attracted you? Why was it something that you kind of made part of the label?
I mean, I think that's just, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking about like our background, and it's just always been kind of at the center of what we connected on. Even going back to the radio station days, sharing, there was like a Tower Records in town, and that was like the one place. There were a couple shops in town, but like this is very, very small pond in terms of like where you could buy music like that. But like purchasing ambient CDs, there weren't really a ton of people, at least in this area, doing that. But then meeting each other at the radio station and kind of meeting and eventually co-hosting like a ambient radio show, like post rock, space rock, that whole thing. I think that's always just been at the center of what we're into, while also acknowledging, that we are into much different music, a million other different things.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like, I found my tribe. Like, man, I'm really into this sound and this feeling and this way of thinking and a perspective on living. And I found people like me, right? And, what you want to do is kind of, as I said before, kind of give back to what made you, at least from our perspective. And this music is, really means a lot to us. And we had some really important moments together and independently of one another, with this sort of in the periphery. So it has a big spot in our kind of overall perspective on living.
What do you know about your fan base? Are they music collectors? Are they art collectors? Have you begun to learn about them?
They're an attractive bunch. They're a good-looking group of people. Intelligent as well.
Yes, of course.
Extremely intelligent, good-looking and intelligent, and talented at everything and anything that they do. They're the best people. They're the sweetest. I mean, Scott, you've been giving us these props for 20, 30 minutes now. And I'm going to go ahead and say that you're probably a fan. And I'm going to say that you're just a nice dude.
Yeah,
so
there we go.
I'm going to go ahead and say the rest of our fans are just nice people.
But I mean, have they come to depend on, are they coming to you for the aesthetic? I mean, are they collectors? Or is it because they're there for the genres as well? They're there for that specific sound?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, because we do jump around a lot.
I'd say what's really cool though is when the not to generalize, everyone that buys our music, but when you get the people who you don't really expect reach out, or they email you or follow you or whatever. There's a couple examples.
Ooh, Hot Chip.
Oh, Hot Chip. Well, no, wasn't there a dude?
Hot Chip's
there
the one
was the guy on
Really?
Instagram. There's wasn't he the actor dude?
Oh yeah, there is an actor. There's a really nice guy on Instagram who's got all these followers, and he acts on not Vampire Diaries, but something like that. He's a really, really great guy. I wish I remembered his name, but he reached out and said oh man, I heard, what did he listen to? He listened to something fairly recently that really, I might have been Moon Diagrams. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was Moon Diagrams.
It was, the first Moon Diagrams. And he said, oh, this got me through some really tough times. And, I listened to this to, whatever, drive around in my Tesla.
Work stuff out.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
He's just so sweet. And we never anticipated,
that's awesome.
Movie star or TV star or somebody listen, but whatever, everyone's into
it's just not that's just special. It's
Hot Chip,
unexpected.
I want to talk about Hot Chip. I don't know why they know us or whatever, but they started following us on Instagram. And it's Hot Chip.
Yeah, sure.
So every time they like something, we have this existential moment of, well, should we be doing things more like this? Should we be doing things in the tone of Hot Chip?
All your analytics is just that one account. Whatever they like, whatever they look at.
But
that's really funny. Talking about the music, the Moon Diagrams, I was thinking that today, the latest release, and that's more accessible than some of the other stuff. Definitely the previous record, it's more accessible than that. Where are you on that spectrum of accessible music? I mean, how far are you willing to go? Or to do some of those records, if they're more musically accessible, do they do better for you guys? Do you have a limit where you say, okay, this is just too accessible?
I don't think, I feel like that's always been one of the things we've always forced ourselves to do, is not try to think too much about what might do better or what might sell. It's really just it is still very much Farbot and Mai and everyone involved. It's very much our label. So at the corner, the cornerstone of the foundation of it, it's whatever we're really into. And obviously, we're not doing straightforward indie rock necessarily or things like that. Yeah. But no, we definitely.
But I mean, that's stuff we like too.
Totally.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's the weird perception, is that somehow we're not going to go for something that might be straightforward indie rock or whatever. But if it tickles our ear that day, man, then maybe that's the record we put out.
You guys are not involved on the music side of things, from an A&R standpoint, from a mixing or mastering. Are you involved in that at all?
No, not at all. I mean, we have a small stable of folks, mastering folks, and things like that. But Sean McCann has done a ton of mastering of the recital label, which is great. But no, we're really we don't get involved to that level, and even some of the stuff that's brought to us, not that much, but it's production ready basically.
That's great. Actually, I was in Atlanta in 2010, I think, and it was the like an ice storm of some sort. It was in January or February, and like everything was shut down, and there was maybe like maybe a quarter inch of snow. Like it was really funny. Like really funny.
Loves clowning Atlanta about that. But here's the thing, man. It's like 1 billion degrees every other day here. The second you got something frozen over, how are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to be prepared for that?
Just hang out. It's cool.
I was strutting around like a big cocky Canadian in my big boots.
No, my family moved to Colorado for a couple of years, and it was like that first winter, it was like, oh wait, nobody stays at home, like everyone's still out and like working. This is no fun.
We shut it down here. There's lasagnas being made, and soups,
time to cook, time to hang out.
Oh yeah, I remember when I was there for that, because they don't have salters or snow plows, that they just dumped gravel downtown. They just dumped gravel in the streets for traction.
Is like, that
we'll clean it up later.
Wait, it's salt. Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
Well,
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that's how they do it up north. That's
not table salt, but Anyhow, this has been a lot of fun, and I'm not 100% sure when this will be out, but I'm thinking it'll be very soon. And you guys have another series of cassettes that are coming out. I'm glad you haven't stopped doing cassettes. I thought you got too big for them because your last 2 records were vinyl.
No. That's very much our bread and butter. Like we have a ton of fun doing the tapes. Like those are even more done in house. Like that's like our sweet spot.
We've got you from here on out. Don't even worry about buying one of those things. We got you covered. You are going to have yourself some tapes.
Oh man, you are very sweet. Are you surprised by the response? Because I wasn't sure. I didn't know this was a 2-man operation, but I remember when the Felecia Atkinson thing came out, it was so beautiful. I'd been familiar with her stuff. And then I went to buy it and it's immediately said it was sold out. Yeah. And then I found it. There was like another, you uploaded another 20 or something. And I caught the second batch. But I mean, are you surprised with how quickly stuff sells out, or?
We're not surprised. I mean, we're pretty used to it. Like, I mean, we do catch a little bit of flack by that sometimes. I mean, it's kind of that balance of, anticipating the, I guess, market demand or whatever, like how many people are going to want these things while also keeping it pretty limited and keeping it pretty special. I think now as we work on, future tapes, we do try and meet that a little bit better. Like we don't want it to be a bad time for anybody.
Sure.
But we also can't have like 300 copies of something just sitting around for whatever reason.
Yeah. Right.
And again, also just highlighting that we do all of that assembling here and mailing and everything. Like, it's not like we don't love doing it. Like I would do it every day, every night, but we also want to move on to other projects and things. So we're kind of, caught in between both sides there.
But I've got another secret, Scott. So the way we like doing it, those tapes, these records, they come out on the Friday, right? And so if you have bought something from us from Bandcamp prior, we like to flip on that new release Thursday night, roughly around 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we don't announce it. We just let that thing sit out in the wild.
Yes.
And I think Bandcamp sends out an email.
Yeah, and I mean, people might be on vacation or whatever, but we try and give a little bit.
That is very sweet of you.
But heads up, Thursday nights at 11ish. If you're not doing anything,
11 Eastern. Tune in.
Tune into your email. There could be an email from Bandcamp telling you a cassette tape is coming out.
Yes, that's smart. I have got those. I think I got those just last week when you did the repress, or 2 weeks ago. That's very interesting. So if you wake up Friday morning like the rest of the schmucks out there,
Right?
You could be out of luck.
Here's the thing, man. I don't get to tell this to anyone ever. These are like the little like secrets that we have that have lived inside of us for years, and now we're finally, exposing the truth. And so I'm just going to tell you how it is.
Well, I appreciate it, man. This is the director's commentary. I mean, listen, like I'm obsessed with the labels. So for me, this is just the back end, but
awesome.
I think for other people too, I mean, that's a kind of a cool tip. That's a great tip because not every label, oh shoot, hold on a sec. Yeah. Okay, we're good. Not every label is going to have a sellout, but there is something cool about saying, hey, listen, before you go to bed, to the people who have supported us in the past, you can have a first dibs, or you can even listen to it before everyone else. I think that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys. This has been fun. I love your label so much, and thank you so much for doing this show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for listening. And one more time, check out geographic-north.com and follow them on Bandcamp at geographicnorth.bandcamp.com. I got a little email from Bobby a couple days after we recorded this, and he let me know that something is happening on September 6th. That's just this Friday if you're listening live in real time. I think there's going to be something cool coming out for them. So that's a little hot tip. So make sure you're following them on geographicnorth.bandcamp.com, because I think something will probably drop the day before that Friday based on what Farbad said. So check it out. Please share this podcast with some friends, connect with me, leave a review on iTunes. And I think if you are in the process of diving into some of these episodes and trying to glean some of this wisdom from these incredible folks and the cool things and cool tips that they share, visit otherrecordlabels.com and there's a free guide for you to download. Just got to sign up, grab this PDF booklet that has a bunch of quotes and some articles that were specially written by these labels for this booklet. I think this free guide will be really helpful for some of you. So go to otherrecordlabels.com to check it out. Thanks so much for listening.